Today we're putting together a bow. Kind of an interesting bow. My daughter is my third daughter. Little smaller frame, but a very powerful girl. Is in need of a new bow fishing bow that kind of can go up to her poundage, so to speak. So I got one of these Oneidia bows. I reached out to them and we decided to do an Osprey. I know they only go down to 25 inches of draw length, and she's technically at 23.5, but these bows are really good at snap shooting and they go up to the poundage that she needs. So I think this is going to work really well for her. You know, a lot of times when you're bow fishing, it's, you know, more affordable for youth to just go out and get yourself like a cheap Bear or something else, and, you know, just take those dual cam bows and just have them shoot them for bow fishing. The headache is after a while you snap shoot those and they'll eventually derail sometimes on you, versus a true bow fishing bow is made to be snap shot. The headache with it is the kids got to get enough poundage behind their bow so that they can really do a decent job. I find about 30 to 35 pounds is kind of needed to really drive that arrow into the water. Now that she's up to about 40-45 pounds of pull, it's time to get her an upgrade. So we're going to get her one of these set up. And Oneidia was really nice. They helped us get this little short 25 going. Got a little bit of a arrow puller and arrow holder that we're going to get on it. We'll get a rest on it. As you can see, this is a lefty. I know, isn't that crazy? You don't see many left-hand bow fishing bows, but bless their heart, over there at Oneidia, they're still making one. This Osprey is great. You can get it in a left-hand version, which is perfect for her. This thing will snap shoot really well. I'm going to set it up for about 38 pounds and just kind of split the difference there. 35 is kind of as low as I want to go. 40 might be a little tough for her to shoot, you know, fast and often, so I think we'll kind of split the difference. Here I'm getting that arrow puller on there, so in case she has to pull that arrow out of the mud. And of course it's nice because it holds that single arrow for you. So I'm getting that attached first. Another thing that I'm going to make sure I get on here is a nice finger guard for her. I'd like to see this get a decent reel. As many of you know, I have nothing against the Cajun reels, but they're just not quite as sturdy on their base, so this time I'm going to bring out the Muzzy. I like that better. And yes, I'm going to go with the closed-faced reel, the Zebco type, and not the bottle. I like how that works, with the safety being the push button, so to speak, and a closed rest to put the line through, so it's always on the outside. Trying out here one of my fiberglass tips on it just to see how it fits on the bow for her. I make a lot of these on my own, so you can watch that video if you'd like down in the comments. I'll try to put a link for it so you can find it if you ever want to know how to make a nice bow fishing arrow. So I'm going to put this reel on, I'm going to put that reel seat on, and I'm going to put, you know, like an extension metal on it so you can kind of torque the fish in easier. I find that's real helpful on the youth. One thing I like about, you know, reel seats is I like them to be all metal. This one is. Muzzy just makes a really nice one. It's strong, it's sturdy, it's durable, and it's quite easy to get the reel tight on it, which I like. The other thing about this is there's a nut in the back of it, which is like a stop nut both for the reel seat and on the bow. And you can actually put a piece of metal in between there and you can put a float on. I do not like my floats, basically the emergency device to recover your bow if the fish pulls your bow out of your hands or you accidentally fall over. I do not like that high on the bow for weight reasons. I like it low on the bow. So when you get down here and you've already got all the weight on your reel seat because your reel is sitting there, adding that little bit of float there doesn't make much difference. So that's where I'm going to put it. Muzzy reels all come right-handed. Doesn't mean you can't flip them around. Just a couple screws come out and you can simply take this and move the handle to the opposite side. I didn't realize I didn't need to take off that plastic cap because it comes out with the screw on the other side. But again, a little bit of tinkering and I was able to get it switched over to a left-hand model. So basically, you know, for me, I hold the bow in my left hand and I draw it with my right and I reel with my right. For Julia, she'll hold the bow in her right hand, she'll draw it with her left, and she'll reel it with her left. Never having to switch gears, never risking that big fish pulling that bow out of her hand that way. So we're getting this changed over. It's a really simple thing to do. Again, I like the Muzzy reel. Nothing against bottles in the sense of how they operate and work, and I understand that the safety slides that AMS made for the bottles works really well. I do not like safety slides when you're dealing with a closed. There's just some potential hazards to it. The safety with a closed reel is basically putting it through properly into a rest that forces you to come from the front of the bow into the rest. That way when you pull the string, if you haven't pushed that button, it drops your arrow, and that's the safety, so the button's always pushed. Got my son here helping film a little bit there. His finger got in a little bit, but he really wanted to help out, and I'm mounting the reel anyways at this point. I think he sees his sister is getting into this different type of archery, that is bow fishing, and he's pretty excited to think someday he might be there. Of course, the other thing for him is that he also is a right-handed person that shoots, because of his left eye dominance, left-handed. So I think it's pretty cool for him to see it. This is Julia here. She's doing some of the finishing of some of the string stuff, and at the time I'm doing her reel, she's actually putting it on one of my other bows, and she's attaching a loop system to it so that she can attach her arrow. It's a really simple knot system that she's putting on it and making herself a loop, and she's going to use that loop to run it up and attach to her arrow. Again, because we use reels, our safety features built in a little differently. If you haven't pushed the button and you try to pull back one of these, because we've got to go through the rest, which is a closed rest, completely closed circle, and you got to go through the front, it'll drop the arrow, and there's no risk then of the misfire. And then you don't need the safety slide. The safety slide is very nice on a bottle reel, which never has a button to push. But if you have one of these that you have to push a button and you have a safety slide, it'll let you pull that thing all the way back to full draw and let that thing go against that button, and that sucker makes a mess really quick, and a lot of times I've seen those come back. So I'm not going to do that. Here I've got Julia just kind of setting it in the vise. Remember, these Oneidia bows are not real pressable bows, but they do fit a vise really well, so you can level them up and set your knocking point, if you want to call that, tail high. I'm going to set it probably 1/4 of an inch tail high on her, because when you're first learning to bowfish, you really need to make sure you can drive that arrow into the water. And if you don't get that knock a little tail high flying off this bow, there's always a chance you might skip into the water. And I find that when young shooters are kind of pulling a very long, heavy fiberglass arrow, these are very adult weighted arrows, by the way. You know, a lot of people are shooting arrows between, 300 and 400 on the weight system, and that's for a typical archery. But as you can see here, I'm showing the mount of the float there. The float I'm going to put on looks like this, and I made that mount from a hardware store. And I'm going to put on the finger guards too. But Julia will be shooting an adult arrow off this bow with her finger guards, and that thing will probably weigh 1,200. So we really don't want those to skip off the water, so I wanted to make sure she leveled it and put it, tail high or knock high. And then what she's doing here, she's putting on an extra large finger guard, and that's going to give her plenty of grip to grab that. And we'll probably put one above the knocking point too eventually, so she can grab either, straddle the arrow or be below it. It's kind of up to her. I kind of like straddling the arrow, but right now she's just learning how to put this all together. So the bow has got an arrow puller on it. It's got an Oneidia completely closed rest to force us to put that arrow and string through the front of it. It's got the Muzzy reel on it. It's got a Savur Float on it, so that if we drop this in the water, it'll automatically float up a little black foam ball that we could grab and hopefully retrieve this expensive bow. And then it's going to have oh shoot, I can't think of the term. A couple soft knots. That's what I was after. A couple soft knots here put onto the finger guard to make sure that doesn't slide, and then she's going to pretty much be ready to shoot it. I start by having them shoot these into traditional archery targets and just learn how to aim them. I like to aim off the tip of the arrow, but as close to my eye as I can, so I tend to draw up close to below my eye, so I only got a couple inches of drop, point off the arrow and see how I do. I've explained that to Julia now several times. This will be her second shot. I think she's getting it down here, and as you can see, she's got to get used to the snap position because it overdraws just a tiny bit for her, but it's working well. She drilled that one right in. Next step is to set the camera down and get a spot in the shop where we can, get this bow hung in my armory and hung well. A lot of these bows, because they're snap shooting bows, have a different mechanism. They don't have a true cam in them, so you just can't hang them right below the cam or right through the cam. So I'm going to make myself some nice holders here on the wall where she can keep this bow out, and then that'll allow her to just take out the bow, go out there to the target and get used to shooting it and aiming off the tip or sight line down that arrow and making sure she knows where to aim. I find that once a bow fishing person knows how to point the arrow to make their target, then when you get them out there and that fish is in the water and you want them to shoot just below it because of water refraction, they do well. So here the bow is all hung up, reels on it, floats on it, the Oneidia rest is on it, left hand version, everything's set up at about 38 pounds, draw length 25. This Osprey is ready to go for the season. I hung another one right next to it. She's got her glove on it. She is all set to go. This bow's a sweet bow for a young person if you'd like it, folks. Check it out. It's the Osprey Short.